mountain, gotta reach for the sky. If you want it, fight for it, or kiss it goodbye. It's make it or break it, try to survive. Don't ever say never, keep your dream alive. Around the clock, we're gonna rock to the rhythm of the beat, from down the block.
He's Blake. I'm Ronnie. All the good names are taken. Podcast. We're back with another random live show, Blake. And hold on, something doesn't sound right.
What doesn't sound right? Is it me?
No, I think you haven't said anything. I'm hearing like you're not hearing any feedback on my end.
No.
All right, just making sure. Anyway, so Blake, I was going through the Instagram.
Yeah? What's going on the gram today? What's
And
popping?
I had a message from Shane Emerson.
Okay.
And all it was a picture, and it said, Happy Return of the Living Dead Day. And it totally slipped my mind that today was July 3rd, and Return of the Living Dead takes place on July 3rd. So obviously, all the horror fans are popping on social media talking about Happy Return of the Living Dead Day. And since Return of the Living Dead is definitely in my top 5 and one of my most favorite movies ever, I hit you up and I was like, Blake, it's a perfect time to do a Mount Rushmore for Return of the Living Dead.
And I said, I agree. I'm also one of the losers who posted that picture, Ronnie. I was all over Twitter with that.
I didn't know.
I was one of the OGs on that.
I didn't know you had done that. But
such a good movie. God, it's such a good movie. How's everything going? Everything's going good, man.
Screw that movie. Let's talk. How's everything going? I mean, we haven't had a show since we went on Frank and Darren's the other night.
Yeah, and that was awful. Never do that crap again. Yeah, what's up, Shane? Welcome to the chat, Broham.
The man who's
what's been going on?
for this.
Ronnie, I went to the movies 3 times in the last 2 weeks. I saw The Flash, loved it. I
did too.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3, loved it. And I saw Across the Spider-Verse 2. Little confused, never seen the first one, and this new animation style, it's kind of got me.
Spider-Man in it?
Yeah, Spider-Man's in it. Lots of Spider-Mans is in it. Spider-Man. But yeah, it was fun. It was enjoyable. And I think I'm going to go to the movies and see Barbie and Ken here in a couple of weeks, too.
Barbie and Ken, you know what? I may go with you to see the Barbie movie if you go. We'll take the girls and we'll have
that's what I'm doing. I'm taking the girls. So absolutely tag along. It'd be fun.
So we get the message, Blake. I want to talk about the Frank and Darren thing a little bit. I know you don't. But Darren reaches out and says, hey, guys, do you want to record one of the questions for our Halloween VIP, Halloween 45, whatever the heck it's called, giveaway? And I was like, sure, we'll do it. And he goes, you need to watch this video. This will tell you exactly what to do. So he sends me a link of the last Halloween giveaway they did. And literally all it was, Blake, I'm pretty sure it was the same contestants too. All it was they would get to the bonus question and it would be a random person that they knew going, hi, what is the total weight of the sack of Loomis? And then they'd come back and answer. So I said, sure, we'll do it. And then he come back and said, do you want to do all the questions? I said, sure, we'll do it.
Our other buddy said no.
So we sat down, and I don't think what most people don't know, probably don't care, is we recorded like a whole 30-minute show centered around those 5 or 6 questions. And we just sent it to Darren and said, here, edit away.
And boy, did he edit.
Which he had to. And I was lurking in the chat just because I wanted to see what their audience would say. And I don't think we're going to have the crossover appeal from TSL that we thought we would. That bunch was not impressed, Blake. They were not impressed with the questions. They were SB. They were strictly business. And I'm pretty sure they insulted us multiple times. And I got to say, it kind of hurt my feelings.
Well, I mean, Ronnie, don't dish it out if you can't take it. You called them ugly. Every contestant ugly. You said that they all needed shampoo. You said that they would be wearing Halloween shirts, which I think 75% of them were. So yeah,
Like I
you
had a
insulted
Goonies
them.
shirt on.
You insulted them, and we get what we deserve. Somebody said I look like Right Said Fred, which I googled it, and hey, you win. You got me.
What would be what's been the worser insult we've gotten so far? When Hairlip Bud called us Dom DeLuise, or the TSL crew saying we like Right Said Fred?
I think there was another comment that kind of got me. They said if someone tunes in now and sees these guys, they're going to think Darren and Frank has aged poorly, and
Yeah,
that kind of got me because
no, that was total bullshit.
Darren's literally 20 years older than me.
There's no, I think somebody was just trying to suck up to Darren and Frank. There's no way we look older than Darren and Frank. I love Darren and Frank, but there's no way. Wait, hold on. He's sex. I'm sex. We should rename the show, Blake. Come on. We're running away people who want to talk about Return of the Living Dead. Get the hell out of here. So real quick, here's how we're going to do it, Blake. And it was a long conversation over text. I didn't know whether to do top 5 moments of Return of the Living Dead, because if you guys want to see our review, you can go and check the playlist. I posted it earlier about a couple of hours ago from last October's 31 Days, our review of Return of the Living Dead. You can go check it out. I think in the future, me and Blake may have a good, bad, and the ugly of Return of the Living Dead coming. So go check that out if you want to see a full review. I said, Blake, what about top 5 moments, or what about a Mount Rushmore? And we skirted around what exactly will our Mount Rushmore episodes be. You wanted moments. I wanted faces. So we compromised. We're going to do top moments, and we're going to do a Mount Rushmore at the end. So get ready in the chat if you want to participate. Who are the top 4 faces you would put on the Mount Rushmore of Return of the Living Dead? Be thinking about it. Blake, Return of the Living Dead, I think it's one of those movies that I've seen so many times. It's up there with Halloween. It's up there with Revenge of the Nerds. It's a movie that had a big impact on my life, as sad as that is, because it was one of the rare VHSs that I owned, and I constantly watched it over and over and over. I can quote this movie up until I got really old. I knew all the names of the characters, and this movie's great. And I need to revisit it again because I haven't watched it in a little bit. But this movie is one of the nostalgic parts of my childhood that I love. And I can't believe I actually showed you this movie there's no telling what age I showed you this movie.
Oh, it was young. This one was one of those that I was absolutely terrified of, Ronnie. And you're right. It does get better with age. I have it on in the other room right now, and I got some stuff wrote down, dude. I've noticed some things that I've never noticed before. And yeah, you making me watch this at a young age had an impact. The first 3 DVDs I ever bought with my own money, I bought TMNT 1990. I bought Escape from New York, and I bought what'd you say?
Flashdance.
And I bought Return of the Living Dead, and I bought the last 2 just to impress you. Hey, brother, look what I got. And I love this movie, man. God Almighty. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but we watched Any Which Way But Loose a couple of months ago. Patreon, made us watch that, and like you and I talked about how we're loving these older characters, these grittier characters, and Bert he's
a damn cowboy.
Dude, he is so good. And like I'm not one of these guys that's like, don't remake it, don't touch it. I would love for this to get the remake treatment and it be centered around Bert. Like I do like what they did here. I do like how you got Bert and Frank, the 2 older guys, and then you got a group of teenagers or early 20s, whatever they're supposed to be. And you kind of got that dynamic of how the old handle it and how the young handle it. And you both kind of see it's just chaos mixed together. But I would love to see a version that's just centered around Bert, worked all day, wants to go home with his wife, wants to get ready for July 4th, wants to get ready for the barbecue, and the idiots at work screwed something up, and he's got to come back and try to fix it. I mean, it's so good. And like Bert has little bitty quotes that I don't think you and I have picked up on before that we're going to talk about. Man, I'm telling you. And I do think they made a mistake. I think they killed the wrong thug member. And you and I have talked about this privately before.
Yeah.
But the character of Suicide, I forget his name.
Him.
He's in Friday 13th Part 5. He's on Price is Right.
Mark Venturini.
Venturini. He died of AIDS. I really think they missed an opportunity.
Wonder how you caught that.
He had water fountain. I really think his character is like a hidden gem because nobody in this little group of friends likes him. And you learn so much about this character in 10 minutes that he's in it than you learn about any of the other characters. Like, you know more about Suicide than you do Spider, Scuzz, the two chicks, the girlfriend, the naked. You know more about Suicide than anybody. And I think if you get to know this guy and you realize there's like a little hero in him, you know, I kind of wish he had the Spider role. I love Spider to death, but I kind of wish Suicide had that Spider role where he makes it to the end. What do you think?
I think that was that character. I'm like you when I was younger. I thought Mark Venturini should have been throughout the entire movie because he was such an entertaining character. But as a teenager, I think I thought he was so entertaining because I love to count just the sheer amount of F words that he got into his small screen time. I think he has over like 20 F bombs in like 3 or 4 minutes of screen time. I don't know where they would have went with him because he was sort of an alpha male. I don't know if he could have worked with any of the other guys, but at the same time, he was working really well with those guys right off the bat. He's like, watch the step, and he's jumping over and he's running to save Tina. He's not like trying to save himself.
Watch your effing step.
It would have been really cool to see where that character or how that character evolves, because that character starts as a loser, like you said, that none of the other guys actually like. They're using him for a ride. And you can tell this guy, he's rough around the edges with the outfit he's got on. And the lines that he has in the movie are some of the most memorable lines that aren't spoken by Bert or Spider. So I would have loved to have seen that, Blake. There's so much that you could pick apart about this movie, but at the same time, this movie has such a charm to it that why bother? I mean, yeah, sure, you could ask, why are Frank and Freddie having to work late? Why not just go? I mean, it's a supply warehouse. Why does everybody not just go home when the boss goes home every day? Why are they having to stay late? You could ask the question of, how does this acid rain get down and create these zombies? You could also ask,
are the zombies not in caskets because they're digging themselves out of the ground?
Why are the military actively searching this out? Wouldn't there be records of where it would have been delivered, even if it went somewhere accidentally? So, but like I said, the movie's got such a charm to it and a grit to it that you don't ask. This is the definition of a character-driven movie. And I've never thought of it, like you said, seeing the mature reaction to this outbreak versus the punk act, the young kids' reaction, and it's exactly the same. Yeah. It's pure panic on both sides, with everybody trying to figure out what to do, and then they meet in the middle. And
let's point out that that's a realistic reaction, and like, even for 1985, watching it now, the dialogue and the reaction, it's all realistic in this. You know, like, you go watch the original Night of the Living Dead, and I understand it's a classic, but you know, nobody's saying what the F is going on. You know, I mean, in this, you get in the cemetery and you hear, oh, you know, what the F is that? You know? I mean, it's a real reaction to stuff. And I got to bring up a point, Ronnie. I was going to bring this up later, but let's just go ahead and get it out there.
Get it out there. I've got the timer set for when we're going to shut this stream down, so you better get it all in, baby.
And help us out in the chat. What's your opinion on this? If those what do you call the crew, Ronnie? What do you call these punkies. If suicide doesn't if suicide doesn't break that lock and chain on the cemetery, is this town okay? I mean, yeah, the zombies are still coming back to life, but they're pretty much trapped in that gated cemetery that's chained up. Are they okay? I mean, what happens?
Yeah, there would be, unless there was a way out, and I don't think there was. So yeah, they would all be trapped in there, and they could just burn them up. Yeah. Here's some things that I think about. This is a movie where I'm pretty sure this is the invention of brains, zombies eating brains. I mean, correct me in the chat if I'm wrong, but this is the first movie where we got zombies specifically after brains. And I don't know about you, but my whole childhood, whenever you think about zombies, you don't think about Romero living dead, bite you on the arm, wanting human flesh. When you think about zombies, you're thinking about brains and all that. And that's from this movie right here.
I absolutely love Dawn of the Dead, but Ronnie, and I don't know if it's just because I got it playing literally right there. This may be the ultimate zombie movie. This may be the best zombie movie.
Return of the Living Dead.
Return.
Okay.
I started off with saying, you know how much I love Dawn of the Dead. This may be the ultimate zombie movie.
It is, but I mean, I don't think you can compare them, Blake. I think if you sat down and somebody goes, well, you just got to look at the levels of drama and storytelling in Dawn of the Dead versus just the all-out maniac crew that's going on in Return of the Living Dead. I think I'm not sure it's fair to compare them, if that makes sense, because Return of the Living Dead is like a popcorn zombie movie. You're not supposed to think too much at it. Whereas Dawn of the Dead, there's a lot of thinking that goes on about this and that and relationships and the psyche of the characters. So I think that's the best description of Return of the Living Dead is a popcorn zombie movie. Real quick in the chat, we got Shane Emerson. How's it going, Shane? This chat is because of you. Caden's there. He's saying that The Flash was awful, Blake. And Jim Bob, thanks, Jim Bob. I'm pretty sure, Blake, Jim Bob is now a supporter of the channel on YouTube. Wow. And he's a supporter of the channel on Patreon. So he's a double supporter. Jim Bob, don't do that, dude.
Wow, what an enormous waste of money. Congratulations, Jim Bob.
Just Patreon only, Jim Bob. We appreciate all the support. Great quote. I mean, great question right here. Let's talk about Quigley's Down Under. We'll get to trash in a minute, because for all the perverts like Jim Bob, the main thing that stands out in this movie, Blake, is going to be Trash's whole dance scene in the cemetery, and later on her walking around as a nude zombie.
Yeah. What appears to be a vampire.
Yeah, I mean,
she got the vampire treatment.
Yeah, I don't think people talk about that enough. She is the, and that's going to be, I mean, if you talk to any guy, one of the most memorable scenes of the movie is her dancing naked. But what most people don't talk about is after she gets killed, you have to assume she gets eaten by the zombies in the mud in the cemetery. When we see her again, she's emerging from the mud, no bite marks, no flesh gone, and she has like a vampire type face. You're right. It's like she's morphed into some kind of like zombie demon. I mean, she's got a prosthetic face and everything. And I don't see how she didn't get worms being all naked in that mud either. I mean, it's not sanitary.
No, it's not.
So real quick,
I got a feeling that she's not very sanitary, Ronnie.
So a lot of people are very impressed with that human being. I'm not that impressed with that human being. Blake, you wanted to go top 4 moments of this movie. So lead us off, because I'm just going to be completely honest with you. I don't have any moments. I'll riff right off of you.
Okay, so my number 1 is going to be the skeleton coming out of the ground with the introduction of the soundtrack's best song, "Do You Want to Party?"
It's party time.
Now, like you said,
to get to that in the song too. If you want to listen to the song,
oh my God, I listened to the song today on the way home from work. Listen, you want to talk about? You know, we should do a topic on songs that are better in movies than they are like on their own. because on this song, like the song sucks like on its own.
Yeah.
But in this movie, the way it plays, it's like this is a hard, awesome rock song. But anyway, yeah. And you know, you talked about we're not going to pick this movie apart. Like a skeleton coming out of the ground that still has eyeballs. I mean, are they not in caskets down there? How are they digging themselves out? I don't care. The visual, it looks really good. It's raining. It sits up like the Undertaker. Its eyes open for the very first time. Its mouth opens, and Spider and Trash, Suicide, they're all just terrified. You know, I think Suicide's already dead at that point, but they're all terrified. And that's when the song starts.
He's not dead at that point. That's where they run out of the cemetery and go to the warehouse.
Okay. Yeah, you're right. But yeah, that's probably my number one moment as far as the Mount Rushmore moments go for this movie is the skeleton coming out of the ground, and we get the repeat scene at the end, which I love, by the way, and the song, the combination of that and the song.
You're right. The song plays a lot better in the movie because they play just the best part of the song. And I'm sure there's some people out there that love music like that. I love the chorus of that song. And it's stuck in my head. It's one of those songs that if you mention Return of the Living Dead, everybody goes, "Do you want a party?" Like, I mean, it's synonymous with
Do You Want a Party by Grave 45, I believe, Ronnie.
Yeah.
I tweeted it today. It's on my Twitter.
All right, y'all go check out Blake's Twitter and check out Blake's Twitter for his merch store as well. Blake, have you been promoting this merch store?
Dude, I have not promoted anything, and I don't even have the details right now to promote it. So there you have. If you want an ATGNA t-shirt, comment down below, and I'll see what I can do.
He's going to sell you one. He's not giving them away. So I can't disagree, Blake, with that being one of the top 4 moments of the movie. The skeleton coming out of the ground scared me as a kid. And I'm not thinking about, I'm like you, well, how's his eyes not eating up? Well, what's going on? What's controlling that jaw? There's no muscles. You don't have to ask those questions like that because it's just great.
It's a good visual. It's a good visual, and it makes up for it.
I'm going to wait. You go, what's your next top moment?
And this is no particular order, Ronnie, but I got Bert killing Freezer Zombie and realizing that they can't be killed. So Bert comes back to work to see Frank and Tom Matthews, and Bert looks at Frank and says, "Are you sure he's dead? Why don't you open the door and find out, Bert?"
And while they're having this discussion, all you hear in the background is something frantically trying to get out of this door, beating and screaming.
Yeah, it's so good. So he gives Tom Matthews the code. Bert's, hanging back like behind the shelving. He gives the pickaxe to Frank, and Frank's like, "Oh God," And as soon as he opens that door, the zombie busts out, runs, attacks Bert, tackles him to the ground. Naked. Now, Ronnie, if you watch this with fresh eyes, it looks like he is eating Bert on the ground. Like,
hey, you want some information?
Yeah.
Okay, so I ordered back in the day, late 90s, the European from Europe. I ordered the it's not the director's cut, but it's the rough cut. It didn't have music in it, and it had different scenes throughout it. It was like a version of the movie that hadn't been edited. And during that scene, Blake, when the zombie busts through the door and runs and jumps on Frank, or is it Bert? He jumps on Bert, I believe. Bert is screaming, "He's biting me. The bastard is biting me." Wow. So that right there lets you know that these zombies don't transmit whatever virus that they have to somebody else. Once if you can get bit and you can survive, you just don't need to get your brains eaten out.
Okay, so that's a good point. I wonder if it's the acid rain that turns them, or
it was just getting hit in the face with that smoke. Because what we haven't talked about, because this is not a review, but one of my top moments, Blake, and save yours for just a second because we'll come back to the yellow body. But probably my top moment, if I had to pick one, would be the whole monologue from Frank to Freddy at the very beginning of it, where he's talking about Night of the Living Dead is really based on a true story that they were spraying these chemicals, the army was, and some of these bodies went to twitching. And then, Freddy's like, "Well, what does that got to do with anything?" He goes, "They brought the bodies here." And then he takes him down to see these canisters, or this one canister, or is it more than one canister?
It's more than one canister, but they only mess with one.
Yeah, and he goes, "This thing's built by the Corps of Engineers, and when he slaps it, it ruptures the tank, and all of the gas is trapped inside of it, hits Frank and Freddie in the face as the credits roll. And that's the cold opening, seeing this poison getting dispersed throughout the vents through this medical warehouse.
And so another great little riff of music, Ronnie, as that gas leaks out.
No, but back to your cadaver.
Yeah, back to Bert. Like, come on. I think Jim Bob quoted it earlier. Damn it, Frank, be a man. You know,
because Frank and Freddie at this point, they are out. I mean, they are nerved up. They are panicked. They've seen a dead body come back to life, split dogs, stuff that shouldn't make sense.
So Frank and Freddie are holding the cadaver down, and he comes through that pickaxe, and he lines it. He takes time to aim, Ronnie, which is a little detail I never noticed. He puts the edge right on the back of his skull, and then comes down on it, and then that makes the zombie get louder. He's like, "Oh!"
That sound is.
Freddie looks up and says, "The brain, the brain," and Bert says, "I hit the effing brain," and that's when you realize you cannot kill these things, and I think that makes this the scariest zombie movie ever.
They end up cutting the cadaver up and garbage bagging it up and walking across the property to, I believe his name's Ernie.
Yeah.
The mortician. And they con him into burning up the body pieces in the crematorium. When they do that, it puts the poison in the air that causes acid rain, and it sprays all over the cemetery. And now they've got a real mess because now it's just zombies everywhere. So, I mean, that's a great moment. And going back to when he hits him with the pickaxe, if you guys go listen to that sound, it sounds like a pickaxe going through bone and hitting concrete. And it's just great. He's the brain. Like it came out the other end of the head. Like he hit the brain, stupid. Yeah. You mean the movie lied? So, I mean, Ed O'Bannon, Dan O'Bannon. Dan O'Bannon did a great job, mixing humor. I mean, because there are some suspenseful moments in this too, Blake. When Tina walks across from the cemetery over to the medical supply, it's a really creepy scene of her walking across that parking lot into that medical warehouse before she meets the Tarman. So he mixed horror, he mixed comedy with a great score and some memorable characters, and he hit lightning in a bottle. What's your next moment?
My next moment is, I think it's an underrated moment, Ronnie. I don't know if you and I have ever talked about it, but there is a music montage in this movie. It's Frank,
Surfing Dead,
Spider, and they're boarding up the windows at Ernie's place. The zombies are trying to break down the main door. They move the dresser in front. Spider asks, and this is kind of when it starts. Spider says, "You got any hammer and boards, hammer and nails?" And as they go in the closet, music starts, and they start. You see them as they're hammering it shut. They're swinging bats, knocking zombies' heads off. They're coming through the windows. It's just a nice little 3 or 4 minute montage that is fantastic. And again, the music is so good. It's like it doesn't make it goofy, but it doesn't make it too scary either. Like I realize I'm watching a music montage, but I also realize how serious the situation is. And then, like you said earlier, the dynamic of Spider and Scuzz working together with Ernie and Bert, because Frank and Freddie are pretty much done at this point. And Tina, I mean, it is so good. It is so good. Like there's nowhere they can go. I mean, it's just awesome.
All right, Nick Push is in the chat, Blake, saying he loves the ATGNAT live streams. We love Nick Push. And Jim Bob goes, he loves Big Ern and that maroon tracksuit, and it was fire. Ernie in the crematorium is great, and they did a lot of things like making it out like he was a former Nazi from Germany with the white hair, and he's got the German pistol at the end. Dan O'Bannon tried to give him a backstory where he was a Nazi sympathizer that fled to America. He's also, his name's Don Calfa, and he's also the bad guy at Weekend at Bernie's that is constantly killing Bernie throughout the movie, and he's great in that movie. But he is really good in this movie. He plays a really good character, and I mean, he's got some great reactions to the zombies. Blake, what is your 4th top moment from Return of the Living Dead?
My final moment, Ronnie, is probably the best acted moment in the movie, in my opinion. and that's going to be Frank crawling into the oven.
Yes.
At Ernie's place. It lets you know that there's still a little bit of sensibility in him, still a little bit of life in him. He knows what he's going to become, and he doesn't want to see it. And he says, Lord, forgive me. He thinks about his wife. He takes his ring off and sets it. And they kind of set it up earlier when Ernie's burning the body of the cadaver. Frank, for no reason at all, looks at Freddy and goes, I can run that machine. And then, he sets, the crematorium or whatever. He turns it up all the way and he climbs in there and he burns himself alive. It's just like insane way to go. But it's also really sad. And again, great little music piece behind him as he's crawling into the oven.
I can't argue with any of those top moments, Blake. But now let's get to why we're here with this video. Your Mount Rushmore from Return of the Living Dead, the 4 faces that make this movie great. I will go first. Or do you want to go first?
No, go ahead. I have a feeling, though, this is going to it's going to be like a mirror.
You think?
I think there's going to be one different, but for the most part, it's going to be.
My first one, and here's the rules for the people in the chat or the people watching after we do this live. When we do Mount Rushmore episodes, we're looking for, in this particular case, 4 characters that make this movie what it is. 4 characters. So my first one, Blake, I'm going with Frank. We talked about it. He's the reason this happens. He starts off, I'm guessing he's Bert's second in command. He's the reason it happens. You see the evolution of his character from calm, cool, and collective to frantically panicked to, at the end, accepting what's happening to him. Instead of going on and becoming a zombie, he sees Freddy turn, and he is in the process of turning. We didn't talk about what kind of pain Frank and Freddy are in as the transformation process happens of these guys dying. So as Freddy turns to a full-fledged zombie, Frank sneaks out of the chapel and into the crematorium room where he asks for forgiveness and pushes himself into the oven and closes the door so he'll burn himself up so that he won't hurt anybody. And put the nice touch of putting the wedding ring right there so it doesn't get burned up, because we find out he's married earlier in the movie when he calls his wife. But Frank is definitely one of the most important parts of this movie. His reactions to the panic and the situations that are happening. He's funny, he's dramatic, and he's the first one up on my Mount Rushmore.
It's really fun. You talk about him being calm in the beginning. It's really fun to think about how your life can be ruined in 1 hour.
Yes.
It's
a great point.
We'll see you Sunday at the barbecue, Bert. You have a good day. And an hour later, his life is over. And it ain't just like a quick thing. It goes from calm, cool, and collected to horror and panic. So, yeah, it's just you putting it like that made me think of just how bad it got for this guy within a few moments.
Yeah.
This is no shocker here. Bert is my number 1. I want him to be the main character of this movie. I want more backstory on Bert. I want every scene with Bert. He has a line, Ronnie, while they're at Ernie's, and the punks come over and start knocking on the door, and he says, they say, somebody's at the door, and he goes, what the F they doing?
What the F are they doing?
What the F are they doing? And they're trying to get in. But yeah, he's just, you talk about he just seems like an all-American, hardworking guy. And
gets called back up to work by 2 idiots.
Something's going on at the office. I got to go back up there. I'll be right back. And he goes up there and he does have some panic moments. For the most part, though, he's in charge of everything. And he's the most sensible. And Clu Gallagher, what... I hate to say it, Ronnie, but I want to see all of his other movies. I know we watched Freddy 2 back last October, but I would like to see some of his good movies.
Well, you can go back to the archives, Blake, and check out, especially if you're a Patreon member, and check out me and Tim on Macho Theater reviewing Hunter's Blood starring Clu Gallagher.
That sounds really good.
Joey Travolta. You say it sounds really good.
Who's next on your Rushmore?
Well, I'm going to echo you. It's Bert. You got to have Bert on the list. I mean, he's the guy that gets sucked into this, and when he sees the situation that's happening, instead of just calling the authorities, he's still so worried about his business. What's going to happen to his business that he makes it even worse by taking it to the crematorium and burning it. He created more monsters when all he had to do was call the damn number on the side of the tanks. They would have come, picked all that up. He was worried to death that they would kill him. I know in the back of your mind, you're like, if the government shows up and knows that we've got these secret things that we shouldn't know exist, they're going to make us not exist. So him panicking, trying to not only save his own ass, but his company, he made it 10 times worse. And if you think about that, factored in with what you just said about him, about how he's always calm and he seems like he's got a plan and he's a great leader. He's another character that is multifaceted, or has had multiple layers, I guess is the better description of this character throughout the movie. So Bert is number 2 on my Mount Rushmore of why Return of the Living Dead is great.
Yeah, and my number 2 is going to be Frank, Ronnie. And it's for everything you said. I mean, the story he gives Tommy Jarvis at the beginning about Night of the Living Dead and do you want to see one? I mean, there's an argument he's the best actor in this movie. I mean, the way he portrays fear, the way he portrays panic, he's just, and like he's one of those guys like Arn Anderson who always looks 55.
Yeah. Yep.
But like 30 years later, he was in that Will Smith movie and looked exactly the same. The Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
He looked exactly the same. But yeah, he's dead now. But he's number 2 on my list.
All right, number 3. I think these last couple, we're not gonna have the same. But number 3 for me, Blake, is going to be Spider. Miguel Nunez is great in this movie. I would say he's one of the leading men, wouldn't you, Blake? He starts off as a side nothing character with he's got the curly mullet, the brullet as they would call it.
Yeah.
And throughout the movie, he takes a leadership role over everybody else, trying to keep them calm. He sees what happens to his friend Freddie and gets freaked out. Bert slaps the piss out of him for 10 minutes and brings him back. But he has some great lines. I'm gonna bash it in the damn head. He is really good in this movie, and this movie is what made me become a fan of this particular actor. And then you see him in a movie like Friday 13th Part 5, and he's super memorable there. And then he's Joanna Man, and then he's the girl in Life. He's had some memorable roles throughout his career, but when it comes to it, he's really good in this movie. He's calm. He's collected when he needs to be. He's thinking of others. He's not being selfish, which is the first thing you think when you see this cast of characters. You're like, these are all, you don't want to walk into these people in a dark alley. You're going to be grabbing for your wallet or clutching your purse because they all, like Miguel says early in the movie, what are we, weird or something? Because Tina says we don't want to go pick him up because it might freak out his boss. So it's just great to see. We judge them based on how they're dressed, and then the way they act in a situation like this is better than people that are dressed, for like a businessman or like somebody that's a supervisor like Frank. So, I mean, I love the character. So Spider's number 3 on my Mount Rushmore.
Number 3 on my list is Spider. I'm just going to echo what you said, but yeah, he's got some of the best lines in the movie. Help me bar the door, stupid effers. I'll drive. No. I'll drive. Hey, man, F you. When it starts raining acid in the cemetery. Suicide, roll those effing windows up. I ain't got no windows.
Busted them.
Yeah, and like he is also a really good actor, too. Like, him showing panic in this and in Friday the 13th. I mean, he's got some really good range. And you're right. Like, he does become like in the beginning, he's nothing in this group. Like, you're like, okay, it's going to be about Tina because she's Freddie's girlfriend. It's going to be about, Trash. She's going to be the one getting naked. The nerd. Yeah. The nerd is going to be trying to hook up with this chick. You really don't think about Spider.
Hey, one thing about that nerd, he's on Swayze's crew, baby, in Point Break.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean I have nothing else to say. Spider comes in at number 3 on my Mount Rushmore of the top faces of Return of the Living Dead. What is this? What is Tommy? Is Tommy okay?
Tommy Wilkins is in the chat, and he's given us a little Easter egg that a lot of people don't talk about. If you look at the eye chart in the office, it says Bert is a slave driver, and cheap son of a bitch who is going bald too. Ha ha ha.
Nice, so, Tommy. Nice. I thought he was raging in the comments there for a minute.
He's raging. He's already sick of it in here. Blake, my 4th one. I've been going back and forth staring at my list. I know people have seen me look over here like Nick Push does when he's staring at the.
I'm going to be upset if we have the same one, Ronnie.
I don't think we are. Because I can argue. I understand why you're about to argue with me. My number 4 is Tarman. I don't think that's your number 4. My number 4 is Tarman. And I know Tarman doesn't have a very big amount of time in this movie, but Tarman is what we all think of when we think of Return of the Living Dead. We don't think of the old lady zombie they have tied or strapped to the table. We don't think about send more cops. We don't think about the guy waving the cops in. We don't think about the little midget zombie that Ernie over. We think about Tarman. Brains, the guy who was one of the original zombies that the army created and busts loose and is walking around all nasty, and he's downstairs. And if you go downstairs, he's got enough strength to grab somebody big and strong like Suicide and bite through his head. And at the same time, he's so wobbly and feeble that when he comes through the door, he can barely move, and Bert knocks his damn block off in a great scene.
Well, not to mention he's thinking too, Ronnie. He grabs a chain and hooks it to the closet door and hooks it to a winch and is pulling that door open just to get to Tina.
Yeah, these zombies can think, and they can talk, and they can form sentences, and they can set up traps. I mean, they set up a trap for all the cops that try to come in there. These are like very creative zombies, comedic zombies too, but they're very creative. And like I said, you can't think of Return of the Living Dead. You don't see a fan art of Return of the Living Dead without Tarman on it. So I'm going with Tarman, and after this is over, I'll explain who else I have there and why. But that is my Mount Rushmore of Return of the Living Dead. Come at me, bro. Frank, Spider, Bert, and the Tarman.
So you want to know what my number 4 is?
Yes.
It's the zombies. Yeah. So really, really close, but not exactly the same. But yeah, the fact I mentioned it earlier, the fact that the zombies can't be killed, Ronnie. They cannot be killed. And when you're like, okay, Bert immediately, let's burn them till there's nothing left. Well, that creates some kind of smoke that causes acid rain, which brings everything else back to life. There's nothing you can do in this universe to these zombies. So yeah, and I like you said, these zombies run. Maybe the first instance of running zombies, Ronnie, 1985. Probably. I think Probably. So. The bites don't turn you. I don't think. I think the jury's still out on that. I know you mentioned that earlier with the European cut or whatever, but who knows? Maybe he would have turned a day later. But yeah, the zombies in this, they're something else. I mean, when the army is set up and you get that great scene of all those zombies running toward the barricade, yes, you just realize there's no hope. Like, there's nothing that can be done. All they can do is blow up, a span of 3 or 4 blocks, which, it's weird that they decided to blow up only 3 or 4 blocks, because you got to think at that point, it's already went beyond that. Right, Ronnie?
Well, yeah, I guess they're just giving a rough estimate and figure they can come in after the explosion and find any random zombies wandering around and take care of them. I mean, I guess you can't blow up the whole damn town of Louisville, Kentucky. I guess it doesn't justify that. But they wasted no time. They wasted no time in sending that missile off and blowing them all up. And you get that last little moment of hope followed by despair when Bert's on the phone and he's like, it seems like they have some kind of contingency plan, like they've been waiting for this. And he's like, yay, we're going to get rescued. Cut to missile silo and them giving the coordinates of where they're going to shoot this missile off of. One of the coolest shots, Blake, at the end of this movie is when the missile's away and you hear the whistling noise and it shows that the sun is coming up in the background and you see all the zombies looking up at the missile that's about to hit. I always thought that was pretty cool to know that this lasted pretty much all night. And when you think about it, Bert's wife never tried to come back up there to find out where he was. Frank's wife never tried to come up there to see what was going on with Frank. They just assumed their husbands were out all night.
I mean, they died in the explosion too, right? Unless they live farther outside that block, huh?
Yeah, you got to figure they didn't live anywhere around that
town.
Yeah, that medical warehouse. I mean, they didn't destroy the whole town. They destroyed
right. That's a good point. That is a good point. I was about to say Frank and Bert's wife probably died in the explosion, but you're right. They probably lived, outside those blocks or whatever.
My honorable mention was going to be Trash. I mean, just because every pervert that watches this movie loves Linnea Quigley. They love her getting up and dancing and getting naked. Most, horror fans are weirdos like that anyway, and they want to see nudity in all the movies. So that's the first thing they jump on. Is, no offense to all the horror fans, I mean, we're all weirdos, is she jumps up there and she gets naked. So that's what people think of, and that, that's what she's known for throughout the 80s.
And something else that I noticed about Suicide's character that had me rolling a while ago, Ronnie, is, and you're right, Trash is a key part of this movie. Like, she is. Like, there is an argument, I'm sure, that's going to be in the chat. She's going to be in 90% of Mount Rushmore's. Like, when you think of Return of the Living Dead, you think of her and her scenes. But when she starts dancing, Suicide is like circling the grave with those road flares in his hand, like doing this. 2 minutes later, he's like, "What the F is wrong with you? Have some respect for the dead." He was literally just celebrating her being naked.
You guys want to get a good laugh? I'm sure most of you know this already, but just focus on the characters that are dancing around Trash as she does her little striptease, and you'll be just dying out laughing. Mark Venturini, Suicide, is supposed to be this big tough guy, and he's doing the milking the cow dance as he's going around. It's awesome. And the movie ends like every horror movie or action movie or comedy should end, with actual video clips of the movie throughout the credits. It's a great movie, Blake. Return of the Living Dead. I mean, like I said, it's a great movie, and I wouldn't mind at all if they did the remake, your remake idea, where it's told from Bert's perspective, and the zombies are running and are super maniacal coming out of the ground. You can even add in the feature that bites and stuff like that infect you too. And, they're trapped in the mortuary. They're trapped in the warehouse and they're trying to get out. Meanwhile, you could have it where the cemetery is all fenced in with the mortuary and with the warehouse. So the zombies are trapped inside the fence with these two buildings. That way you can explain the zombies not getting out, and they have to survive and try to find a way to get out of there alive before the night's over with.
This was fun.
It was. Real quick, thanks to everybody that stopped by in the chat. I think we had Jim Bob, we had Caden, we had Shane Emerson for a little while, Nick Push, Tommy Wilkins. Guys, this week we got 3 weeks left of our summer series, Blake. This week, as soon as I get it edited, we've got One Crazy Summer from 1986, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of One Crazy Summer. Still to come this summer, we've got Ernest Goes to Camp and Heavyweights, and maybe one more that I discussed with Blake the other day if we can sneak it in. We're about to start work on 31 Days, so the content may not be as constant as it has been. Don't panic. We're just making sure October is going to be great for you guys. I also have some other ideas of things we already should have done, Blake, and I haven't run it by you yet. We'll talk about that off the air. If you wasn't here live, hit us in the comments with who is your Mount Rushmore for Return of the Living Dead. Explain why you're right. What are your top moments from Return of the Living Dead? Hit the like button. Subscribe if you hadn't already. If you want to support the show, you guys can find ways to support the show. The links are available.
Jesus.
Blake's selling shirts. Go buy Blake's shirts. Only $600 per shirt.
Yeah.
And that should just about do it, Blake. Return of the Living Dead. Quite possibly the greatest zombie movie ever. Or as I've termed it tonight, the first ever popcorn zombie movie. And it's fantastic.
You went to the movies and saw this as a 5-year-old, right?
As a 5-year-old, I remember I remember our parents walking me up the aisle of the movie theater after it was over, as the credits played, and as "Do You Want to Party?" It's party time. Happy 4th of July to you, Jim Bob. I hope you have a great 4th of July, my man. And for everybody watching, it's going to be a great 4th. We've got our independence. We got our freedom. Blake, what are you eating tomorrow? It's a great day to grill.
It's a great day to grill, Ronnie. Every day is a great day to grill. I'm probably going to do the classic ribs, burgers, and dogs. What about you?
Ribs, hot dogs, and I'm going to smoke some bologna, baby.
Smoking bologna. I love it.
There you go. Guys, check our archives for any of our archives for any of our other content, and we're going to see you guys later.